Good evening. Welcome to this month's Town Administrators Report. I'm David Watts Jr., and with me is our Town Administrator. Steve, how are you doing this month?
I'm doing good. Very busy month. I feel like I live in this room here at WCAT between meetings and what have you, but good. We're, April and May are busy months for us, so that's the way it is.
It is. It is. We have an election coming up on the 28th.
21st, 22nd.
22nd.
22nd,
Sorry,
yeah.
22nd. Yeah. And we have town meeting coming up, which will begin May 5th.
Monday, May 5th at 7 p.m. at the Galvin Middle School Veterans Memorial Auditorium.
So before we get into the articles, whatever happened with the cherry sheet this year?
Well, the cherry sheet is the same as it was when I discussed it before.
So nothing has changed?
Nothing has changed for the positive, which is what I'm really hoping for. Hasn't also changed for the negative. I really think that that they, being the state legislature, is kind of looking to see what happens. I think there is uncertainty what's coming from Washington, D.C. It is encouraging that the local state receipts seem to be doing well and seem to be actually a little bit increased than before. I do think that the legislature heard not only Wakefield, but other surrounding communities loud and clear. So perhaps we'll get some supplemental funds this month, but really we're not going to hear on the budget until this is kind of mid-April now. I'd say May, before we know what the state numbers are going to be. We still are living with the House 1 budget, which is the governor's proposal. So
right.
I'm hoping numbers go up there, particularly in the area of education and unrestricted local aid, but I think there's a lot of unknowns.
More so than I think in past years.
Yeah, I would agree. Absolutely.
It really is kind of new territory this year, and not just in Massachusetts, but in every state.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. There is people will say, well, what happens in Washington, D.C. doesn't matter, but there is a trickle-down effect. Money that goes to highway funds. If that goes away, a portion of that goes to the state and helps us with our Chapter 90 money, which helps us on our roads or helps us with specific projects.
Right.
So there's federal funds that come to, directly to help the school department and, meeting their needs, and that's, is a little bit nebulous right now. So, yeah, this is probably one of the more uncertain years that we've had. So, but you know what? I think Wakefield has proved itself to be very resilient over the years and to figure it out. We're aware of it, town council, school committee, finance committee. So, we have reserves, we have contingencies to pull. So we'll make it work.
One thing, that we've talked about over the years is that the management of town and town finances has improved steadily over that period compared to what it was at one time.
Well, I think we have a really good team, not only at Town Hall, but in the volunteer boards that help us out. I think we really try to forecast ahead. Now, we have forecasts, and forecasts are, I'm not going to say it's a guesstimate, because it's not a guesstimate, because it's based on past performances, but, we can look out on the horizon and see, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, 10 years, if things go a certain way, what's that effect going to be on our bottom line? So that does, help us make some of these decisions today. The finance committee and the town council, they go over every line item. I mean, they're given budgets, each department. I mean, what each department spends on everything, every employee from the newest hire to the long-time director. All those salaries are in there. So it's full disclosure, and, a lot of work is done. There's a lot of meetings, there's a lot of discussion, and at the end of the day, I think we've come up with a pretty good product. We've also adhered to a pretty robust financial policy that also, makes us really look at what are we doing. I think the most important thing we've done is that we haven't used non-recurring revenue to pay for recurring expenses. And that is kind of the trap, I think, that a number of other communities have fallen into.
Right.
But you know what? There's unlimited needs, and there's only so much revenue coming in. So, it's we're kind of all in the same boat, all of us, all of our communities.
But that's also been kind of the theme over the last decade and a half, is getting the financial picture in Wakefield to be more under control, more stable than it had been in previous decades.
And I think that what we've done is we really have phased in projects. Kind of, let's let the tax levy catch up. Let's, and I know some people who want these services, they're impatient, and rightfully so. We talked about this, Steve, we talked about this. How come it hasn't come in? Well, it's going to take a couple of years to build the budget up where we can fulfill that need. So, I think we've seen that, and we've seen, mission critical positions or programs added to departments, whether it be the health department or the police department or the fire department, and DPW items, schools. I mean, we can't just say, geez, we need this program and let's fully staff it right away. It takes time. It takes time if you want to do it in what I think is a economically, fiscally feasible way to do it. So, but there are headwinds. There are headwinds as we go forward.
Yeah, but luckily the headwinds aren't self-caused.
No, I mean, I hope they're not. I hope they're not. Time will tell.
The town has worked very, very hard in general to bring things under control in ways that they hadn't for a very long time.
Well, I think we made some commitments to a slow and steady approach to some things, and that's hopefully that's paid off. Hopefully, it will continue.
But we have this year a total of 19 articles on the warrant. 12 are annual budgeting and other articles that we see year to year.
Yeah.
3 are acceptances of easements. 1 is roadway improvement, which we'll get to. 2 are zoning bylaw amendments.
Yes.
And 1 is a citizen petition at the very end.
Correct.
So, of course, Article 1 is the budget.
Right.
And that's one of the things that draw the most people in.
Yeah, I mean, this is, arguably the most important article that is voted on. And I say arguably because not everybody feels it is. But this is really the article where the town decides, where to spend their money. I mean, and it's broken down by, each area of departments, general government, which is kind of, think of that as your town hall, departments, the smaller ones, police and fire, building inspector, health and human services, whether it's the health department or the senior center.
Yep.
The DPW, okay, another big part of the budget. Education, and I'm including in that the library, our library, and this budget we're putting forward maintains Sunday hours, maintains full accreditation. That is not happening in every community right now. Then we have, kind of a catch-all and, unclassified some things, insurances and things like that. And then we have benefits and administration, and the big bugaboo there is health insurance.
Right.
And I'll tell you that where I'm talking to communities that some of them, the highest number I heard is they were looking at a 30% increase in health insurance costs.
Really?
That's really high. We're in the group insurance commission through the state, and even we're looking at 12 to 14%, depending on what program people are in. So, health insurance nationwide, that cost of that trickles down to us.
Right. Right.
But this is where all of those items are voted on, and spoke to a high school class today, and one of the questions was, how do you decide where to spend your money on? And we make the presentation, right? But it's town meeting vote. that
Right.
decides that. And,
Right.
so Article 1 is about, $115 million, and that'll be, voted on each area separately by town meeting, and we'll get questions. Hopefully, we'll be able to answer them all. And, department heads are there to answer specific questions that maybe I can't handle, and that should take, an hour or so of that first night, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, depending on the appetite of the crowd for what we're presenting, and then we take it from there.
Sure.
But that is arguably the first one. But I would say this: you don't see too many people leave after Article 1. They stay for the remainder of the meeting. They may not come back on a subsequent night unless there's something that really interests them. But traditionally, people don't leave after Article 1.
Well, but there is a certain core group of voters
Yeah.
that do attend town meeting
Right.
religiously.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, and which is important because that's what makes the town government work. It isn't the town council, it isn't the school committee, it isn't the other departments without the voters who actually show up and discuss it, debate it, and vote on it.
Yeah, and we've been very fortunate here in Wakefield, and I don't anticipate it not continuing. That, for the most part, the absolute, almost 100% part is that people are civil, respectful, ask the questions. Hopefully, they're provided answers that they either agree with or disagree with, but hopefully the question's answered.
Right.
And then we vote, and it's all open. I mean, it's all, you raise your hand or you don't. Very rarely is there a movement for a secret ballot, which I think defeats the purpose of an open town meeting, personally. But there is the ability to do it.
I have to agree with you there.
But I think we have been very fortunate, and that's the other watchdog in this whole. You talk about, we've been pretty good fiscally. Well, that's the other watchdog too, is town meeting.
Right.
So there's a lot of checks and balances there, I guess.
Right. And it's good to see people turn out.
Yes.
It really
Yes.
is. Article 2 is capital outlay.
Yeah,
That's for the capital projects that want to be done in the next
that want to be
fiscal year.
done in the next fiscal year, and
Yeah.
it's a little bit over $2 million. I remember 15 years ago, I think that article was about 200,000. And,
Right.
Here's a case where we were able to ratchet that up every year, a little bit more. I will tell you that the people that are the capital hawks
Yeah.
don't think it's enough every year. I will tell you that some people think it's too much, and for this amount. But here's the area where you can talk about buying capital items that we can afford to do in 1 year,
Right.
whether that is a police cruiser or two, a command car, redoing a field somewhere, maybe redoing a roof, HVAC systems, things like that. And what is good about keeping this in this ballpark of money is that it does reduce the emergency down the road and the emergency costs there.
Right.
But as I also know that just because something doesn't happen in capital outlay this year,
Right.
it's not a no, it's a delay, most likely. So it's going to might have to be pushed
Right.
a year, and those are the fiscal realities we have.
And Article 3 continues that with capital projects / debt services
Right.
fund.
So your
appropriations.
larger projects, for instance, the Galvin Middle School and the high school that's being built, I guess it's this way behind me.
Right out here,
Right
yeah.
out there. Those we could not pay in 1 year.
Right.
So it's like putting an addition on your house or building a house, I guess. You get a mortgage, and
Right.
this is our mortgage bill every month.
Mhm.
And that actual item is going to go up because the borrowing on the high school has increased, as you can see by its construction behind us. But that was a debt exclusion that the town voted on. So, however, also included in Article 3 is the public safety building,
Right.
some of the, fire truck we bought over the year, the turf fields
Mhm.
that we did out back here,
Mhm.
and those are starting to fall off. We're starting to pay off some of those mortgages. So that's kind of your larger capital projects that we really can't afford to do in 1 year.
Right.
Walton School renovation is in there. So there's a lot of different things.
Article 4 is another one that we're used to of allowing the Board of Assessors to use part of the MGLD's operating fund in commuting computing the tax rate for the
Correct.
next fiscal year.
Correct, yes. So what happens is the MLD does not get taxed per se
Mhm.
by the town of Wakefield. So this is really a payment in lieu of taxes. You might have heard that term out there. Pilot programs, people also call it. So this is allowing, the municipal light commissioners, who does a lot of, good for the town. And I think we need to be very thankful for the light department, because when everybody else is out in a storm, Wakefield's back and running because of the dedication of our people that work for the light department. Do a great job, and
But at the same time, also having an in-town light
Right.
department has saved residents enormous amounts of money compared to what surrounding towns are getting charged by
National Grid
National Grid or
whoever.
Eversource.
Or Eversource, right? No. So you get better service and for less money. Who
Yeah.
doesn't like that? But there has to be a mechanism for the town to utilize what would be, if that were a private plant, they'd be paying on it.
Right.
Okay? So this is kind of a way of doing that, payment in lieu of taxes, and that's important because it's around $900,000, and it does help us move forward there.
Article 5 is raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds to supplement appropriations of various budgets for the coming fiscal year.
Right. No, it's for the fiscal year we're in now.
Oh, okay.
So actually, this is, an article that is in front of town meeting quite often.
Yep.
And there are budgets that do go over from time to time. And in this case, this is completely for the fire department. We had between 10 and 12 fire personnel out this year due to injuries suffered at work. We have to maintain safety. Public safety is number one. So we had to bring in people on overtime, and people are injured on the job. They're still going to get a paycheck, obviously.
Right.
So this is to fill that gap.
Right.
I think it's about 125,000. Excuse me. It's the next article is 125.
Right.
This is $650,000, and we'll take it out of savings this year to do it.
Right. Yeah. Article 6 is to indemnify police officers and firefighters for medical, surgical, and hospitalization.
That they receive in the performance of their duties. So
Right.
the reason why that is there is because, first of all, health insurance doesn't want to cover an injury that happened at work.
Right.
We all know about that. Firefighters and police officers are more apt to be injured
Right.
than other departments are. So, and for other departments, the town has workers' comp insurance if they are injured at work. Workers' comp insurance will not cover police and fire because of their propensity to get
Right.
injured.
Right.
And God forbid that they do. So this is the town of Wakefield covering it, and that is $125,000. Mainly firefighters, because again, goes with Article 5. We had to do more overtime because people were hurt.
Right.
So it makes sense that the medical bills were paid in number 6. We don't like it, but it's the way that it is.
And it's a fair way of doing it.
Yeah.
Article 7 is authorize town council to accept or take by eminent domain proceedings, conveyances, and assessments. That's another annual.
That's an annual
Yeah.
one, and a lot of these annual ones I'll do via a consent agenda, hopefully. And we can
At
talk
the outset.
At the outset. And we'll talk about that after we finish up on Article 7, I guess. So this is an article that, if we're putting in a sidewalk and or putting in a road, and it's going to take a little bit of a curbing, and there's no value, a little bit of property, and there's no value to it. For $1, this will be funded by $1. We will use that. This allows us to do that. If, for any reason, we're putting an easement or doing any land taking of any significance on private or other or commercial property, That's a completely separate article,
Mm-hmm.
and we've seen those over the years. We're going to see a couple of them today at town meeting on May 5th as well. That's a separate article, even if it's only going to be $1, because it's real specific to it. And Tom Mullen doesn't particularly like Article 7, so we put it in there just to catch all. So we will have a consent agenda, and let's talk about that. So
Which you've been doing the last few years,
yeah.
and it seems to streamline things nicely.
Exactly, because there are certain articles that over time, and I keep and people make fun of me, and you've seen them. You've been in my office. I have a binder for every town meeting, whether it's the fall town meeting or the spring town meeting, and in that binder, I will make notes. Questions were asked, who asked certain questions, and as importantly, certain articles that had no questions. So after 10 years of getting no questions on some of these articles, I was thinking to myself, why wouldn't we use the parliamentary ability, or town meeting ability, to put a consent agenda? We're going to say that certain articles, certainly aren't going to do that with the budget, because that gets questions and that's really in depth. But some of them are pretty rote.
Right.
There'll be a handout that'll explain them all. And the great thing about consent agenda, if anybody objects to, geez, I have a question for Article 7, I don't want that on the consent agenda, we'll pull it out and deal with it separately. So it does streamline things and allows more time to be spent on, as we get further into the numbers here, some items that are going to be a little bit more
But
talked about.
there are some articles that come up every time,
Every year.
and they rarely have any controversy to them at all. And so, yes, and that you've been doing that now for what, 4 or 5 years?
At least, maybe a little
Maybe
longer.
a little longer.
Yeah.
But it does kind of, those things have to be voted on.
Yeah.
But let's see if we can
Let's see if we can do them all in
in
one vote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Nope. Absolutely. Another one, Article 8, raise and appropriate. This is to raise the money to pay for trash collection, disposal, recycling, composting, and anything else having to do with refuse.
So this article is actually Joe Conway, our DPW director, did a great job in negotiating with. This is for trash pickup and trash removal, or going to the different incinerators around. It also keeps the Nahant Street Yard Waste site open, including a lot of Sundays. Also includes any other trash removal that we need to do, like the leaf pickup that comes 3 times a year. I think we do 2 in the fall, 1 in the spring.
Right.
So this is all for all that removal. We were able to hold the line on this, and I do think it's and this is a tough market right now. These costs are going up over the whole region. We've done a really good job with recycling, and we have recycling bins during the holidays at Town Hall. Also at the yard waste site for sheet metal and for clean cardboard, which we can still get a little bit of reimbursement for. So we were able, through those efforts and through good negotiations, keep this article level funded from last year. So, it's still over $2 million, but it really is really very proud of our team for coming together with that.
Well, and if you look driving around town on any given day and you go through a neighborhood where trash is being picked up that day, the residents have bought into it.
Right.
And you see that with the collection of things in front of the house, whether it be the usual trash bin or the recycle bins.
We're doing much better in recycling and reusing. And a lot of people have signed up for that Black Earth.
Yes.
For the composting.
I was going to bring that up. Yeah.
Taking that out of the equation of tonnage, of throwing it away, really helps us. And people have been really good about not putting items they shouldn't in the trash.
Right.
Because there are certain items that aren't going to be picked up. whether the carrier's not going to take it or it's a DEP issue, and people, if they try to hide it in the trash, let's face it, no one's going to see it.
Right.
All right. But what happens is when it goes to the incinerator, and our load is looked at, if it is contaminated in the sense that there are items that shouldn't be in there,
Right.
That load could be sent back. We got a problem, or we got to pay a fine. So people have been really good, and I want to thank the community for that, because that saves us a lot of cash,
Sure.
or saves all of us together a lot of cash.
Absolutely. Article 9, appropriate a sufficient sum of money for the purchase of one 1,250 GPM, gallon per minute, pumper truck.
Yeah, now we're getting into some of the fun articles, right? We've done the rote ones, the first 8. So, you know what? We have a 2,000 fire pumper, okay, that we need to replace.
Which
okay?
one is that?
That is engine 4, I believe, called engine 4. But I may be off on the number. But it is a pumper that is well beyond its useful life. Useful life is about 20 years.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
It'll take 3 years to have the new one built.
Yep.
So it's a backup pumper. So hopefully it's
Yep.
not used much. I mean, we went to a management strategic decision years ago to have 2 pumpers, 2 active pumpers and 2 backups, because we want to make sure that if there's something happens, we're going to the house very quickly.
Right.
You know, or to the medical call.
Well,
wherever
and
we're
2 of
going.
those are in the Greenwood station.
2 are in Greenwood, 2 are in the main station.
Yeah.
So after this is done, we'll have I believe a 221 pumper and a 2028 pumper. We'll have a 2017 pumper in reserve and a 2006 pumper in reserve. So that'll be the next one in a few years down the line. Now, this 2,000-year-old pumper that we purchased in 2000, I think we purchased for about $310,000. It's going to be $1.3 million plus now. So times have changed. But, you know, these have a 20-year life. This one, we get a lot out of the pumpers. Fire department does a great job in keeping them clean and neat and washed and keeping the salt off them. And I think when people ask, what are you going to do with the existing one? Well, there's no trade-in value to the company, to Seagrave or the company that's doing it. But we will sell it to a local community around here. The last one that we sold, we drove into the fire station at a community not too far from here, and I think the truck basically started to fall apart when we stopped in their driveway. But we got a few grand for it, so we do get the most we can out of them. And you know, when items go on a fire truck, you know, maintenance wise, the springs go or something.
Right.
First of all, very few people fix them, you know. And number 2, the parts are very expensive. So you get into a real, and it's out of service, so there's a safety issue.
Right.
So you
because
get
they're very specialized.
very
in design.
specialized.
Sure.
So, you know, this has been talked about the last couple of years, and where it takes 3 years before we'll receive the new one, we need to get it going.
Sure. Yeah. Sure. And but that's good. Article 10 is raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds to design and obtain permits and approvals for a new salt shed.
Yes, the current salt sheds that are at the Nahant Street Yardways site are, I'm surprised they're not blowing down this afternoon because the wind's picked up a little bit. They are really held together with spit and chewing gum and duct tape. And this has been something on our radar for years.
Yeah.
You know, we do actually save money,
right,
by having the salt shed so we can store some salt. I mean, we'll talk some years about filling it up in May if we think the prices are down. So that helps. You know, we also have never had a problem of running out of salt like some communities have because we have a place to store the salt.
Right.
And we'll take delivery at any time.
Right.
So that helps there too. So these are old, tired. I can't even tell you how old they are, but very old. So this is really to create the design for what they'll be like. Mm-hmm. And then, assuming that happens, we'll be back to town meeting probably in the fall or next year. Okay. Someone will be back, not me. Yeah. And they will and get for the go and get money for the actual building of them.
Okay. Article 11, raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds for replacement of the town-owned fueling facility. Where is that located
the
for
town
people who
fueling-
are new to town?
Right now, it's at the DPW barn or garage, whatever you want to call it, on North Ave.
Yeah,
Okay, that is a very, very tight site. So our philosophy on this is to go and we've already done the study of this. So kind of two-prong approach, like on the salt shed. We've already done the study. So we'll be moving this to the Nahant Street site, which has a lot of room, as you know.
right.
Okay, and that will be underway. Building those things, again, we can save a lot of money because we can store a lot of fuel, including diesel, and it's necessary. The other item is that the Nahant Street, the North Ave site where the barn is very tight.
Right.
Very tight, and
Right.
It's hard to get vehicles in and out of there, particularly when you have we're receiving fuel. So
Right.
this is something that needs to be done, and the fuel islands are old, and we don't want to have a contamination problem
Right.
if we can help it. So
But where the pit is in a largely residential area, is that, do you think, going to create some controversy?
yeah, I don't think so because it's already being used daily.
Yeah.
A lot of those trucks that are already going there every day now will just fill up while they're there. So I think it's not.
But I'm thinking more along the lines of the storage of the fuels.
That's pretty far away from everything.
Yeah.
And that's a big site. So I look at it this way. I hope you haven't given anybody that idea, but we haven't heard anything about that
Right.
yet.
Right. But it is a possibility out there.
Absolutely. That's a separate article, and it'll be talked about, I'm sure, at town meeting.
Article 12, raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds
Yeah.
environmental remediation of town-owned property at 94 Butler Ave. This is the contaminated site that we've talked about in the past.
We've talked about in the past, yes. 94 Butler Ave was used, has contaminated lead, contaminated, other contaminated asbestos on it. Allegedly from the high school, which was the high school at the time, that burned down the old Atwell building and the high school back in
December 71 was when the fire
December
occurred,
71.
Yeah.
So the town was actually was under a lawsuit about this a while ago. The town did decide at town meeting again
Yeah.
to purchase the property.
Yeah.
Now we're in the process, and this is when COVID hit. So this was 2020. COVID hit. We were going through DEP to see what we could do to cap the site and everything.
Yeah.
So then DEP basically went quiet a little bit during COVID. So what this is to allow us to complete the remediation, and it's going to be a capping. Okay. If we were forced to remove the fill
Yeah.
and not cap the area, I think this is about $1 million ask. That ask would be 10 times as much
Right.
had we lost that. So, and then we own the land, so the long range plan is to parcel out the area that is going to be capped, and that'll have a little path on it, maybe a little sitting area, and the upland that is buildable will be probably coming with a plan, or I hope coming back to a plan to town meeting to sell that to recoup hopefully all of the money that we've spent on handling. So we may get out of this, very close to, having a $10 million problem to having to breaking even. So that's the plan on that.
But that's still going to happen over a period of
Over a period
years.
of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Article 13, vote to authorize town council pursuant to General Law, Chapter 40, Paragraph 14, to accept a grant of drainage easement, 39 Grafton Street.
Okay, so there is, that area of Greenwood has had tough drainage for years.
Yep.
probably decades, right? Close to you, actually.
It is.
Yeah, it is. And this is the owner at 39 Grafton has agreed to give us an easement to, run some drainage pipe 2 out. So we need permission to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And the town needs to ask for that, and the town meeting needs to authorize town council to sign off on that.
Right. And to raise $1.
And raise $1. Yes.
I don't know. That one may break the budget.
It might.
There are actually 2
Yeah.
like that. The second one is at 70 Butler Avenue.
Right. 70 Butler Ave, no relation to 94.
Right.
It's a completely separate article. And in this case, there is a very large drainage easement on the property already.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're actually going to do is to kind of shrink that, create a smaller easement, because we don't need that much space.
Right.
And then this will actually help the homeowner out a little bit. So that's a kind of a feel-good one, I think.
Article 15, vote to authorize town council with regard to 200 to 400 Quantapowhat Parkway, which is the new development.
Yep.
To accept a portion of the property for open space and conservation purposes, to accept an easement for public pedestrian access. That's the walking path that's been there for years now. And to enter into a lease agreement allowing Wakefield Police Department to use and occupy a portion of the property as a public safety office.
Right. So this, as everybody may recall, so 200, 400 Quantapowhat Ave is the new, and you're seeing it being built right now.
Yep.
It's a new apartment complex.
Mixed use.
Mixed use.
Yeah. Retail. Yep.
Which will have a restaurant and have some retail in it, but a lot of units. I think 440 units, if I'm not mistaken. Apartments. During the negotiation with the Zoning Board of Appeals, and actually the Friends of Lake Quantapowhat were very much involved in this because it's right on the lake, and that's their mission is to protect the lake. We wanted to make sure that some area there, which we don't own now, okay, was restricted for open space and conservation purposes. And this was talked about when the Board of Appeals did the final approval of this, is that it's an area that's going to have a little bit of pathways in it that will, maybe some nature looking at, and that's going to be, under that restriction. There will be another kind of walking path, the one along the lake, which is town-owned, but there'll be another one that kind of zigzags through there on the 200 Quantapowhat Parkway. So again, we need to have a mechanism to have the ability to do that. The third thing is, and you've seen this up at, if you've been up to Market Street, there's a little like satellite office. It's not big. It'll have room for a desk in it and phones, where, this is going to have a lot of activity up there. Should the police need it, it's a little area for them to, maybe interview a suspect or something like that. That's up there for that as well.
Or someone who's in need of assistance.
Or assistance.
Yeah.
And that's for nominal consideration, which really means nothing. Zoning Board of Appeals, these were their restrictions that were agreed to by the petitioner at the time, but they have to go to town meeting to be done. So that's that one.
Article 16 is one that we've talked about on the show before, and that's fixing or improving the intersection out here at Farm Street at Hemlock Road.
Right. So I think people may recall that part of the presentation and part of the whole project for the high school is to kind of fix that very zigzaggy intersection that we have between Nahant, Farm, and Hemlock. It is, I call it half a bubble off center, I guess. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. So this will, and I think there's a picture of it in the warrant as well, kind of shave off some area where the existing parking lot is at the high school, kind of bring people over more towards kind of a squarer intersection with Nahant, and there will be, part of that, there will be a roundabout in the middle of it to happen out. So this is, but we have to make that happen. We can't just do it.
Right.
Some of this land belongs to the school department, or belongs to the town, but it's used for school purposes.
Right.
So we have to kind of change that all through it, and that's what this article does. will be explained by the town engineer, who'll do a much better job than I just did here. So,
Hopefully with a time frame.
yes.
Article 17, sorry, vote to amend the zoning bylaw replacing the current floodplain district map with the floodplain overlay district map dated February 27th this year.
So every decade or so, the Federal Emergency Management Association
Yep.
goes around and, all over the country and updates what is in a flood zone and what isn't. And it's FEMA's call.
Mm-hmm.
Their call, not our call. Why it's important is because if you are in that zone, you want to be able to get flood insurance, and you're going to need flood insurance, or you're not going to get a bank loan.
Right.
On it. So this is our adopting the changes that FEMA has made, which I guess are really minimal.
Right.
And they're in the areas that you would think that have flooding now. And again, the town engineer, Bill Renault, will go over that. But interestingly enough, is that FEMA usually gives us a lot of time. Because I said, Bill, this is one of those mind-boggling down. I said, can this wait to the fall? And he said, no, that FEMA usually gives a while for towns, cities, and towns to adopt this. But we got notified by FEMA in January of 25, and that we had to have this done by July of 25.
Right.
So we had to move very quickly to get this done. So it is done, and it's ready to rock and roll at the Springtown meeting.
Article 18, vote to amend the zoning bylaws, striking Chapter 190, Section 22 in its entirety and putting in new text.
Yes. So I think this article, like the MBTA Communities Act, will have the most discussion. I think so. So this has to do with what they're called ADUs, accessory dwelling units. And this is really talking about how the state made a change, had a state law that basically said every residential lot in town had the right to have a accessible dwelling unit of not to exceed 900 square feet on its property. Okay, that's basically the crux of the state law. So what that means is that I don't know your backyard, David, but if you met the requirements, you could put a smaller unit out there for you to use or rent or live in, and people couldn't live in the big house, whatever you want to do.
Not happening on Greenwood Avenue.
I could do the same. I could do the same thing. But what this does is it creates some reasonable restrictions.
Yep.
So consistent with what we have. But I think there's going to be a lot of discussion on this one. It is a state mandate. I can't sugarcoat it. This is coming down from the state.
Right.
But I think in this case, it's here anyway.
Right.
It's not that we had to adopt an area in town to do it. This is here anyway, and really what this article does do is give the town the ability to put some restrictions on how these are done.
Right.
Very important. One of the most important thing, you can't have short-term rentals on it. So we didn't want to have a bunch of Airbnbs. This is supposed to be for housing.
Right.
So that's in here too. But this is something that I imagine will get a lot of discussion.
And then finally, we have a citizen petition. This is the same petition that was brought up at the last town meeting.
Very similar with a couple of changes, but basically what this is prohibiting Wakefield against using town resources to enable violations of human rights and international law by Israel. And it basically says that the town shall not purchase goods or services that are designed or made in Israel by a complicit company. I imagine this could get some discussion as well, but this is, again, I think one thing that is great about our system of government with an open town meeting is that 10 people could put an article on town meeting. Right. And they are exercising their right here. And again, I would hope that no matter where you are on this issue, that and town meeting's been great about this over the years, and we've been going there, 30, 40 plus years now, right? For
Right.
me, about 40 plus years, maybe you 45. That people are respectful and allow people to have their say.
That is the hope. I know we've gone overtime, but normally we cover annual town meeting in 2 shows, and we only had 1 show this time.
Yeah. This
But-
year does feel compressed for some reason. I don't know why.
But the final thing, which we've done every year for now, this is the 17th season, is how long?
How long? I am going to say that we will wrap up town meeting on Monday, May 12th. So I think we'll go into the 3rd night.
This is the first time in the history of this show that we've agreed, because I wrote down here, estimated length of an annual town meeting, 3 sessions.
3 sessions. Yeah, I think we'll be into the 3rd night.
Yeah. Well, we will see.
We will see.
We will see. But, you know, as I've said every year, the important thing is for the voters in town to participate. This is your chance to have direct participation in what the town does and how it does it. So please come down. We don't have enough seating for 16,000 voters, but, you know, it would be nice to see more than
Right.
110. So hopefully we'll
And it's
see you
pretty
at town
comfortable.
meeting.
It's pretty comfortable.
It is very
Yeah.
comfortable, and we have overflow. Please come down, please participate. This is your chance to have your effect on what the town does and how it does it. Hopefully we'll see you at town meeting.
Yep.
Steve, thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Take care.